where to start with AWS, what I'd like to do is welcome Jethro Carr up from Fairfax to give you a bit of insight into Fairfax's journey into the cloud. Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Brilliant, thank you. I need to correct the slight inaccuracy. I'm actually from Wellington office rather than Sydney office. Well, it was understandable because I do spend a lot of time in AP South East too. I'm not actually from there. So my name is Jethro Carr and I'm the systems architect for Fairfax, New Zealand. Now, when I tell people I work at Fairfax, they're like, well, hang on, you guys do newspapers. What does that have to do with cloud? Like, what? You can't print in the cloud? Well, actually, we kind of do print in the cloud. There's also a lot more to our organization and what we look after. Probably the key part for myself and my team is that we're responsible for the stuff.co.nz news website in New Zealand. That's over 2 million unique visitors every month, and that's hosted 100% on the Amazon platform. And I don't just mean a few S3 buckets and some EC2 compute, I mean the full range of Amazon products. We're using CodeDeploy, we're using FQF, SNS, we're using CloudFormation, we're using Lambda. If you name it, we've probably had to play around with it and incorporated it into our designs. And that's everything from massive CMS platforms that aren't particularly friendly for anyone to use, all the way down to lovely little microservices that are just premium for the cloud. And yeah, there are actually newspaper print systems running in the cloud. We've actually just coming towards the end of a major project to move print layout into a cloud-based system. So literally every newspaper we produce in New Zealand will have gone through Amazon at some point. And I guess that's worth pointing out in particular because the cloud doesn't have to be just for the new hip modern technologies that your developers are turning out today. But you can also migrate your traditional legacy workloads into the cloud and still take advantage. So how do we end up here? We don't really have the luxury of being a 200-year-old startup. We're a 100-year-old, slow-moving, big enterprise. Lots of tech debt, lots of pain, trying to survive in a modern world. How do we end up using a best-of-breed cloud provider? How do we get here? Well, like most groups, it starts off with a vision. We need to move to the cloud. Actually, I really hate this vision or this word, we need to get to the cloud. Because that implies a singular goal, that we can start off where we are currently, get to the cloud, and then we're done. Because that's not what it's about. It's actually a journey. Because what happens is once you adopt public cloud, new technologies become available, new options open up, and it continuously evolves. Not just the platforms they offer, but the design that you build and the products you build around that. And I mean, to give you an example, in the time since Fairfax first adopted AWS, we've seen the rise of virtual machines, we've seen the rise of containers, and now we're seeing the rise of serverless computing. Technology doesn't stay still. Our designs have to evolve. Your partners have to evolve. So how do I discuss continuous evolution and break it down to chunks? Well, there was actually 3 distinct stages of the process that we had at Fairfax. And I guess stage 1 is very common to a lot of customers when we realize that, wow, we can put virtual machines in the cloud and not run out of space. And so we started off like many groups, using Amazon as an extension of our data center. But that was how we were using it. Like, why do we even try Amazon in the first place? I mean, if I wanted a bigger data center, I'd just go buy some blade chassis and rack them up. We chose Amazon because we had allowed us to do faster product innovation and delivery. We're a media company. We don't have the luxury of A, large amounts of cash, or B, a lot of time. We have new competitors moving in, trying to undercut us, doing things cheaper, faster, without the traditional hang-offs that we have in our environment. Using Amazon meant we didn't have to try and compete at a low level in launching servers or hardware, just like our competitors. We could move ahead and cheat, take advantage of public cloud's innovations, focus on product delivery and innovation, not worry about the day-to-day hassles. And we're in a pretty good place. So we started off in the cloud, we had Amazon, using it as an extension of our DC. We had traditional concepts, but we were in a pretty good place where we had automation in place already. We'd already invested in Puppet for machine provisioning, operating system configuration. So we were reasonably current at the time. And what we learned is that Amazon is a fantastic virtual machine provider, or VPS provider. Even if you do nothing more than use Amazon to point and click launch EC2 instances on the console, it is still far better than most other corporate environments you'll ever deal with. It's fast, it's with almost instant. You don't run out of SAN. You have unlimited amounts of compute available, and you're not waiting 3 weeks for me to run around with DC of a crash cart racking up some hardware. It's a much, much nicer experience. There we are. All right. So you've gotten to Amazon. All your compute's in the cloud. Everything's wonderful. Time to go to the pub. Well, yeah, okay, go to the pub. You've done some good work. You've gotten rid of all your blade chassis. You're happy people. Go have a pint. You've enjoyed it. But please come back tomorrow because I need you to continue to evolve your designs, continue to evolve how you're using the cloud. And that's what we did at Fairfax. We moved from the stage 1 very, very quickly where we were doing individual machines being spun up either via point and click or via command line to realization that this isn't the way cloud should be natively used. There's much better options. And so we started re-architecting for native cloud infrastructure as service designs. And the first key part of that was realizing everything we did wrong. Because no team is perfect and you will make some mistakes, especially when adopting new technologies. We lifted and shifted our network designs. So we took a concept that applied to physical switches and VLANs, shoved into Amazon, where actually layer 2 segregation doesn't really make sense anymore because you're on this giant backbone and you've got better controls for security isolation. We were using point-and-click VMs. Now, I know I just proclaimed the glory of Amazon and point-and-click VMs as being fantastic. They are. They're also terribly inefficient because you can do it that way, but it gives you the ability to automate and take your environments to the next level. We had everything on one account. Now, David mentioned this earlier in his chat. Don't put everything on one account. And I think the best way to describe the pain we have with one account is that it takes me back to my flatting days, where all your flatmates you got along with reasonably well, but you shared that one fridge. And someone would knock over your milk with a bad API call one day, you wouldn't know who it was, and someone left that dodgy dinner from 3 weeks ago in the back of a fridge, and well, nope, you better not touch that dinner because that's Bob's meal. Bob's very precious about his stuff, even though it's a giant mess, you better not touch that. Flatting isn't a great experience. If you can have your own apartment, your own fridge, you're much happier. With Amazon, you can have your own account per team, own account per department, but there's no financial penalty because you can consolidate all your billing to one account and take advantage of the overall account size. We had dumb stuff. You can lift and shift most applications into the cloud, but some applications are just bad. Things like applications that require a single CPU or a single instance license. And this phones home to me in the early stages of our cloud experience. We had a beautifully engineered high availability active web serving environment for a new project. It was a work of art, multi-HA, textbook, white paper style material. But the product team brought a software solution that licensed for one server. So suddenly all those amazing benefits of the Amazon environment where you've got that active HA was now rendered useless. That's a bad application. Please don't buy that application. So naturally, correct our mistakes. Firstly, get in the experts. And I mean, David mentioned this before. You've got the option of bringing in, of course, your own staff who are skilled up on Amazon platforms. You can bring in consultancies, Amazon trusted partners, and you can bring in, of course, Amazon support themselves. Really, you probably want a combination of all of this, using them where they make sense. But please, when you bring in the experts, don't say, Mr. Very Expensive Consultants, can you please build me a cloud over here whilst my team sits in the back room doing the day-to-day drudgery. Bring in those experts, combine them with your team, teach your team, do a knowledge transfer, and get your team to build the environment with them because they'll be engaged and they'll understand how it works and set you up better for the long term. Automation is king. And I mean, this is not new news. If you've been to anything that mentions DevOps in the title in the last 5 years, it's all about automation. Now, because we're in a reasonably good state at Fairfax with Puppet automation for all of our operating systems, we took advantage of Amazon CloudFormation to build out all of our resources and then use Puppet to provision the operating system, the configurations, and the applications. But it's not the only option. And if you're coming into Amazon without that, I guess, benefit of existing investments in automation tooling, you've got other options such as OpsWorks, which is a chef-derived product, or Beanstalk, which is maybe a little bit more friendly to developers. And it's not a case of one necessarily being better than the other. It depends on what your use case is, what you're even trying to run, and of course where you want to get to with your environments. Use off-the-shelf products. A really common design mispattern I see, and not specifically in Fairfax but in other groups, is people love to reinvent their own database replication. Everyone goes, oh, well, we know best how to write bash scripts and PowerShell scripts that can do SQL failover far better than anyone else. And your two people sit there and write some dodgy scripts, you throw it out, and you know it'll be trustworthy when you come to do a DR situation. Except for the times when it doesn't actually work because you've never really invested in it properly. And why would you waste tons of money doing so when Amazon's done all that investment for you and produced RDS? It's got the high availability. It's got the automatic failover. It's got all the monitoring you need. In fact, it's so good that when we had an outage recently, we flipped from one DB to another, and our DBA team did not even get paged because it was that smooth. That's a solution I like. I could not produce a better, cheaper product for Fairfax compared to what Amazon already done. So why bother? My team's got much, much more important things to be doing. And going back to my previous point about bad platforms, try and kill the bad platforms. And I mean, the bad platforms, or platforms that are bad for Amazon, were generally platforms that were bad anyway. They were holding your business back. They were slowing you down. They couldn't give the SLA you required to your stakeholders. You couldn't innovate on them. Here's your chance. Kill them off. Put them in your business case for a new solution when you move to the cloud. All right. So you've done all this. You've religiously consumed my advice and David's advice. You've implemented all of this. You're DevOps gods now. You're worshipped by millions. Your Twitter feed's got thousands of followers. What more could you possibly do? Well, I want you to keep evolving because it's a journey, it's not a destination. You've reached a really, really good stage, but there's a much more improvement you can still do. In our case at Fairfax, we're moving from stage 2 into stage 3, which for us is the introduction of serverless computing. And what services really means is not that there's no servers, but it's more realization that we hate servers. And this is deeply personal and hard for me to say because as an engineer, I love nothing more than to go home and compile my Linux kernels. And there is no true to calling in life than a well-optimized Linux kernel. Nothing comes close. But it turns out that actually the product team isn't that excited by Linux kernels. The product team wants to know, how do we keep Fairfax competing? How do we continue to offer things to our customers that make them happy, that give us readers, that serve ad impressions? Servers don't do that. So we're looking into products such as AWS Lambda and API Gateway, so we can move from having to manage those operating systems containers ourselves to having all managed for Amazon. So taking care of the hardware, the VM, the container, the JVM, that whole stack is abstracted away from us, and we're simply paying for what we use. It's a very, very exciting technology. Because at the end of the day, servers for the sake of servers is pointless. I would rather my team spends time actually solving real problems for the business that are hard, rather than just provisioning yet another server. Provisioning servers isn't hard. We all have processes to do so. It's not exciting for my team. So I really want to reinstate how awesome the server stuff is for us. So this is the current workflow for us at Fairfax if I want to launch a new application. So we launch a CloudFormation stack, and that's pretty great. It provisions out all of our storage, our compute, databases, everything we require. Takes a couple minutes, and we've got a system up and running. We kick off Puppet. Puppet goes and configures all the operating system and the application. We add it to monitoring, deploy the software, and of course finally run it. Now this is a pretty standard sort of typical DevOps type workflow. It takes about 5-10 minutes max to completely launch, excluding when you actually optimize it further. But to get here, we had to invest quite a lot of time in CloudFormation and Puppet. It was worth it for us because we were at a massive scale and we had existing investments in Puppet. But there's still a lot more work and investment up front than you might want if you're a small company or if you're just starting off in the Amazon space. So what can we do with serverless? Well, we could deploy the application, and then we could run the application. Whoa. Where'd the rest of it go? Well, we don't need to run the rest of it because it's managed for us. Now, if you're a DevOps engineer like myself, you might suddenly feel a deep-seated panic that you're no longer required in your business to run these servers in these environments. What's your role? I'm not actually worried. And the simple reason for that is when we moved from physicals to virtual machines and put 10 servers on one, we didn't get rid of 9/10 of the staff. Those staff moved on to doing more work with less, better things with less. My team will move on to doing tricky problems with caching and serving at scale. They'll work on better security implementation. They'll work on better deployment pipelines instead of worrying about operating systems and virtual machines or even containers. There's always too much work to do in a technology team. We all know that. There's never enough people, never enough time. So offload the things that don't add you value like operating systems and focus on things that do give you value such as software. So keep evolving. We still are at Fairfax. We're somewhere between 2 and 3. And 3 may change. We might see new technologies we want to take advantage of. We might decide we're investing more heavily in technologies that confine for mobile. There's many different ways you can go. Your stage 1 to 3 might not look the same as ours, particularly if you're a software shop more than an infrastructure shop. But the key part is keep looking at new technologies, keep reviewing what you're doing, and keep adopting them. Because the whole advantage of taking a platform like Amazon is that you can quickly innovate and take advantage of new features as soon as they're available. You're not stuck waiting for teams to roll out updates to your platforms. So I'd like to thank you very much. I'll be around the rest of the day. Feel free to come have a chat. But I'm going to hand over to the very excellent Nathan Besh from Amazon. Thank you.